Kitco Mining's special coverage of Resourcing Tomorrow is brought to you by Discovery Group.
Hello and welcome to Kitco Mining with me, Paul Harris. We are at Mines and Money in London, day 2. And kicking off day 2 today, I'm pleased to be joined by Ellis Martin of the Ellis Martin Report. Good morning, Ellis.
Hi, Paul. Great to see you today. Thanks for having me.
It's great to see you again. It's been a few months since we were last together.
That's right. It has been a few months. Lots happened in those past few months.
Absolutely. It's been a very interesting year, 2022. Maybe we can start off by, it's been a volatile year for precious metals and the mining sector in general. Let's start off by talking about what for you have been some of the highlights and the lowlights of the year.
Well, some of the highlights of the year have been actually me attending these conferences. And even though the market for precious metals and base metals and all metals has really been depressed, seriously depressed and suppressed, I would have to say that there's a lot of optimism amongst us, amongst our peers, amongst these mining companies. Everybody's in a fairly good mood anticipating the coming bull market, whenever that's going to happen. And I think there's been a lot of positioning going around to be prepared for that. So the survivors, the people that we see, the booths, the companies that are here that are presenting, that not just here, but all around the world, you know, they know what they're doing. They've survived markets like this before, and they're really well positioned to be prepared for the coming bull market.
Okay, so we're in November, coming into December. The year's almost over. What are some of the key things you're looking or keeping your eye on at the moment in terms of what's going to happen next in the precious metal sector?
Well, as a journalist like yourself and an investor, I'm looking at companies that have pending M&A deals with some of the majors and the mid-tier companies, and I'm very patient with that. So, you know, that's where I've put my money. I haven't sold anything during the last 2 years, and I just see that building and coming and being exciting. There's lots of opportunities right now to average down and to buy in at bargain prices for many of these equities.
In recent weeks, we've seen the precious metals and the copper price start to sort of move higher. So it does seem that it's a case of investors knuckling down, being patient, waiting for the brighter tomorrow whenever that does come.
Most retail investors don't get that, and because they don't quite understand the sector. But if they did, they would jump in right now, because it really, in my opinion, and that doesn't make it a fact, this is the best time ever to take some of that cash that you've got parked and invest in companies that are good.
I want to take a slight sidestep now. Crypto has arguably been drawing some of the attention away from the precious metals. People have been investing in that. Some people have made a lot of money. Some people have lost a lot of money. Crypto's had perhaps an even wilder year than the precious metals. And perhaps fittingly is ending with a major meltdown in the shape of FTX. In light of this, do you think money will be starting to come out of crypto and perhaps redeploying in the precious metals?
I don't think that's a guarantee, and I think that particular market and that cadre of individuals, and it's a wide brushstroke. You've got people from all edges of society, a lot of young people who've never given gold or silver, precious metals, base metals the time of day. I think it's an education process. So it's on us as journalists. It's on these companies to step out there and get into that world and peek around and say, hey, we're gold. We've been around forever, since the beginning of time. You know, it won't dissipate. It won't go away. So it's really an education process. And I think people that move markets like the crypto market is kind of a shell game. It is kind of a Ponzi scheme, if you will, and we have evidence of that right now. You know, if they decide to manipulate the gold market, it's been manipulated before. And what I tell most investors that are still new to this game is get in when they're getting in and get out when you know, at the peak, because that's truly how you make money. And you can keep your own personal integrity in that. I'm not asking anyone to manipulate any market, but when that happens, it'll be big, and it will be a manipulation of sorts. And it'll be when everybody decides, okay, where do we go now? Okay, gold. That's how it's going to lay down, in my opinion.
I suppose in some ways you could have the point of view that gold is the original cryptocurrency, from the point of view as it holds value and it's, you know, effectively untraceable.
That's a nice tagline. I think we should use that, absolutely.
Okay, now you mentioned M&A. M&A has been sluggish this year, but there has been some, and obviously at the moment there's a big transaction on the table for Yamana Gold. What kinds of transactions do you think we'll see next year?
Can I be specific?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I think we're going to see something with Rio Tinto and Western Copper and Gold in the Yukon. I think there's potentially a lot of value there. I am a shareholder in full disclosure. I've been to the property. I know that Rio Tinto is actively involved in their day-to-day operations. They've got people there. They've got a huge scanner there looking at all the rocks. I think that will happen. I can't prove it. I don't think the president of the company, Dr. Paul West-Sellers, is going to say it absolutely will happen, but I know he's happy right now. Why is that?
Well, I seem to remember you and I were on a site visit to Yukon back in June, I think.
Yeah, you were there.
And I remember Paul Salas saying around November time there's expected to be some kind of decision or an announcement.
And that doesn't mean these timelines are not hard and proven. So that doesn't bother me that the announcement hasn't been made yet, and maybe there's no announcement today, but it's coming. When? I don't know, but you and I were on the project, and it looked amazing. And you know that activity is real, and the company is real. So,
and Rio throughout this year has been investing quite a bit of money in juniors. It's really looking to sort of cover its bases and get access to copper deposits.
Well, they have no choice, and that's the business model for most majors.
Okay, what about in the gold space? As I mentioned, Yamana Gold's on deck at the moment. Who else is coming around the corner?
No, I can't say I know the answer to that question. I'm not willing to make any outreach in that area. But I also know that that Western Copper and Gold is sitting on a lot of gold. Does Rio Tinto get that as well? We don't know. Could another major get that? We don't know, and I really can't predict. But getting back to copper again, I'm also invested in a company called Kodiak Copper, and as you know, Kinross took out their sister company, Great Bear, run by Chris Taylor, who also is the chairman of Kodiak Gold. And I bought into that company about exactly a year ago. I've lost half of my investment. I've sold not one share because I know that eventually a transaction will happen. I don't know when. I don't know exactly who. But I buy the team, don't you?
Let's talk about the juniors. It's been a difficult year for juniors from a finance point of view. A couple of years back, the finance window was very open. Companies raised a lot of money. Companies have been spending a lot of money, advancing their projects. That window firmly shut this year, and it's been very difficult for most juniors this year. You mentioned a moment ago, you used the phrase survivors. Are a lot of companies going to survive? Is there going to be a mass extinction event of juniors if the window doesn't open again soon?
A mass extinction. I think that's always possible, and we've seen it before. But everybody I've talked to in the last year, I guess, because I've been on the road like most people have probably for about a year and a half, post-COVID, I think the real path to surviving is not looking at yourself as necessarily an exploration or development company, although technically you might be that. What is your path to M&A? What is your path to production, even if you're greenfield? And advancing that path. If you can show that path to the investor, and if your team's good, then I could participate, and perhaps my audience could. If you can't show that path, if you've got no project you can vend out or JV, because you have to look at that, because you can't get money right now, really, unless you're involved in the energy space. You know, nickel, copper, cobalt, companies of that nature, lithium for sure. We don't know how long the lithium market's going to last, and that's where there's money available immediately because of the ESG mandate. But if you're a precious metals company, if you're a gold company right now, you better have your eye on a deal. You better spend all your money on developing that resource and develop those relationships with the majors or JV partners, or you're going to die.
Okay. Now, so bringing things to a close, Ellis, inflation, recession, stagflation, debt, war. What do you think are going to be the key drivers for the precious metals and mining sector going into 2023?
Well, gold is always a fear purchase, actually. You know, what's the scare story? I remember when it used to be, Greece and Southern Europe leaving the EU years ago. How would that affect everything? And then to move gold, it used to be China and India and the BRIC countries that would move gold. And so we've run out of stories, and the market's not. You can't cry wolf anymore. So I don't. And really, inflation hasn't driven the market yet. But maybe it's sort of a jack-in-the-box thing, and you would think gold would be at $2,500 or $3,000, which which people have predicted for 10 or 15 years now. It just hasn't happened. But maybe it's just waiting to catch up, and it hasn't done that yet. If it doesn't spring into action, it never will.
Maybe the spring's coiling.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Ellis Martin, the Ellis Martin Report, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Paul. It's been a pleasure. Great to see you again.
And stay tuned for Kitco Mining for more from Mines and Money.
Kitco Mining's special coverage of Resourcing Tomorrow is brought to you by Discovery Group.